I let my neighbor my truck when his mom got sick. He drove it every day for months. One morning, it was gone. When I tracked it, I found it registered in his name. You said I could use it, he said. You didn't say for how long. That night, I sat with the title in my hand and made one call that ended everything.
So yeah.
I live in Glendale, Arizona. Been in the same place for almost a decade. Small, regular house. Nothing special. I work HVAC and mostly keep to myself. My neighborhood is full of working folks. Some good people, some not. Dean moved in next door about 2 years ago. Kinda scruffy guy, maybe early 30s. You could tell he was trying to make things work, but struggling. We weren't close, but we'd nod at each other or talk about football while dragging trash cans to the curb. One morning last fall, he came up while I was hosing off the driveway. Looked like crap. His eyes were sunken, his shirt was wrinkled, and he kept fidgeting. He said his mom had cancer. Real bad kind. Said he had to keep driving to Mesa for treatments and hospital visits. Then he said his car had died on him that morning. Alternator or battery, whatever. He didn't have a ride and needed to be at Banner Gateway by 10. I looked over at my truck. Old Ford F-150, solid shape, nothing fancy, but it ran good.
You can use it, I said.
Just bring it back later today. He looked stunned. Kept saying, thanks, man. Thank you so much. That was supposed to be the end of it. But he didn't bring it back that night. I figured he was still with his mom. I texted the next day. He said thanks again, said things were rough. I told him no problem.
A week went by.
Then another. Every time I asked about the truck, he gave me some excuse. I'll be done with it soon, or I'm still at the hospital, or I'm using it to help move her stuff. I let it slide. I didn't want to be the guy who harassed someone about a vehicle while they were losing their mom. So I waited. Then she passed. He came by the house a few days after. Didn't say much. Just looked tired and said, thanks for letting me keep the truck this long. I told him it was fine. I assumed he'd return it now. He didn't. He kept driving it. Every day. Sometimes I'd see it parked around the corner. I got the feeling he didn't want me to see it in front of his place anymore. I asked him about returning it.
He dodged.
Told me he was using it for work now. Said he was helping someone move. Every time, a different excuse. I got pissed, but I still didn't push too hard. Then one day in March, it vanished. I walked outside, looked up and down the street, and it was just gone. I called. No answer. Texted. Nothing. I walked over to his door and knocked. Lights were on. I could hear movement, but he didn't open. That's when I knew something wasn't right. I logged into my insurance site and looked up the policy. The truck wasn't listed under my account anymore. I went to the DMV's online system, entered the VIN, pulled up the registration. It was in his name. He'd transferred the damn title. I felt cold, like I'd just walked into a freezer. I stared at the screen, rereading it over and over, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The truck I paid off. The truck I kept up with. My truck. Now listed under his name.
I didn't sell it to him.
I didn't sign anything. Next morning, I waited for him. He came out with coffee in hand, looking like he was going to work. I walked straight up. You registered the truck in your name? He didn't even flinch. Just shrugged. You said I could use it, he said. You didn't say for how long. Then he walked past me like nothing had happened. I just stood there, watching him drive away in my truck. That night, I pulled out the file cabinet in my hallway. Found the old title. The one I kept in a plastic sleeve just in case. My name on it. My truck. No transfer signed. No sale. And I made one phone call. The call I made was to my cousin Darren. He works as a deputy clerk in Maricopa County. Nothing high level, but he knows how the system works, how titles get transferred, what documents are needed, what people can fake. I told him what happened. Gave him the VIN. Gave him Dean's full name. He asked me one question. Did you sign anything? No. Then he forged it. That hit me hard. I knew it already deep down. But hearing it out loud made it real. Darren told me to come by the office with my ID, proof of insurance, and the original title. He said he'd flag it and start a process to reverse it. Said it might take a while, but we could prove the signature on the transfer form wasn't mine. But there was more. Darren said if he filed with forged docs, that's fraud. You could press charges. Now that word, charges, that stuck in my head. I wasn't even sure if I wanted the truck back anymore.
It wasn't just about that.
It was about what he did. He looked me in the eye and took something that wasn't his. Acted like I was the one being unreasonable, like I owed him. So I started digging. I found out where he was working, some HVAC outfit in Phoenix.
Called and asked for him.
They said he'd just left for a job site. So I asked if he was using a company vehicle. They said no. Of course. He was using my truck. Next, I checked with my insurance again. Turns out he'd switched the policy too. Opened a new one under his name and VIN. That's why mine disappeared. I brought all that to the local police station. Filed a report for vehicle fraud and title forgery. I handed over everything, screenshots, emails, copies of my title, even the old text messages where he thanked me for letting him borrow the truck. 2 days later, a detective called me. He said Dean claimed I gave him the truck. Said I told him it was his after his mom died. Said I didn't want to deal with it anymore. That made my blood boil. He was lying. To the cops. To everybody. So I asked the detective if they'd looked at the signature on the transfer form. He paused. Then said, actually, yeah. It doesn't match your license. They were sending it to their forensics team to confirm. But even without that, he said it didn't look good for Dean. Said it was enough to start the process. Meanwhile, Dean kept driving around like nothing was happening. He even parked right in front of my house one night. That's when I snapped. I took pictures. Called the cops right then. Told them. The truck registered in my name was just parked in front of my house. They showed up 20 minutes later. I watched from the window. They knocked on his door.
Talked to him outside for a while.
Then they asked for the keys. He refused. That's when they cuffed him. I watched from behind my blinds as they put Dean in the back of the squad car. He didn't even fight it. Just looked stunned, like it hadn't occurred to him that this could actually happen. That there could be real consequences. They towed the truck. I stood outside while they loaded it up. One of the officers walked over to me. You'll need to get this sorted through the courts before it's officially yours again, he said. But for now, it's evidence. It felt strange. I wasn't happy. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just empty. Like I'd been holding this rope tight for months and finally let go. 2 weeks later, Dean posted bail. And just like that, he was back. No truck.
No job.
And now, no mask. He didn't even try to pretend anymore. He looked at me with pure hate when we passed in the driveway. A few nights later, I heard yelling outside. I stepped out and saw Dean in his front yard, arguing with someone. A woman. Short, loud, looked like she was about to swing at him. She saw me and pointed. You the one who got him arrested? I didn't answer. She laughed.
Good.
He did the same thing to my cousin in Tucson. Stole a trailer, forged the paperwork. Never got caught. That hit me harder than anything else. He'd done this before. That changed everything. The next day, I took that information to the detective. Gave him the name of the woman. Told him what she said. They followed up. And yeah, turns out Dean had a sealed file in Pima County. Something similar. Settled out of court. He'd never served time. But now they had a pattern. It wasn't just a stolen truck anymore. It was fraud, intent, repeat behavior. My cousin Darren told me quietly they might be able to charge this as a felony. I thought about that for days. And then Dean's brother showed up at my door.
Big guy.
Looked just like him, but heavier. Wore a baseball cap low and didn't smile once. I think you made your point, he said. Maybe it's time to drop it. I didn't answer. He leaned in a little. You keep pushing this, someone's gonna get hurt. You get me. He turned and left. I shut the door. Locked it. Then called Darren again. Darren didn't even sound surprised when I told him what Dean's brother said. Threatening a witness, he muttered. That's stupid. He just handed us more ammo. He told me to write everything down, word for word. Times, dates, what the guy looked like, what he said.
I did. Send it in.
Within 2 days, an officer showed up at my door to take an official statement. Meanwhile, Dean wasn't hiding anymore. He was mad. He started doing weird things. Dumping his trash in my yard. Blasting music at 3 a.m. revving some borrowed car engine when he pulled into the driveway. One night he sprayed something on my garage door. Couldn't prove it was him, but it smelled like bleach and left stains. I kept reporting it all. Every single thing. Then something snapped in me. I started going through every document I had. Every receipt from repairs, every oil change, every part one ever bought for that truck. I found one from 2 years ago, an engine rebuild from a shop in Buckeye. $2,800. My name all over it. I mailed a copy of it to the prosecutor. But I didn't stop there. I called the HVAC company where Dean had worked. I asked to speak to someone in HR. I'm not trying to cause problems, I said. But you should know. You had a guy using a stolen vehicle on your clock. They were quiet for a moment. Then the lady said, "We're actually part of a fleet insurance program. That could have voided our policy." I didn't say anything else. Just gave them the detective's name and hung up. A week later, Dean was officially fired. Then I found out his bail got revoked. He tried to transfer another vehicle, a '99 Chevy Blazer, using a fake signature. This time, the guy noticed immediately and called the cops. It was enough. They locked him up pending trial. Still, I couldn't relax. Because the damage was done. The truck? Still sitting in the impound lot, tied up in paperwork. The house next door? Now full of random people, friends of Dean's, I guess. Loud ones. Disrespectful. One of them keyed the side of my wife's car. Another tried to let their pit bull run loose into my yard. But the worst part? Dean started writing letters. From jail. He sent me 2. Both handwritten, both rambling. The first one apologized. Sort of. Said he wasn't in his right mind. Blamed his mom's death. Said I should be a man and let it go. The second letter was worse. He called me a snake. Said I set him up. Said I owed him that truck for being there when I was laid off last summer, something he helped with one time by giving me a beer. I turned both letters in. They were added to the case file. The trial date's still weeks away. And the thing is, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm done. But I've still got one more card to play. That one more card was something I'd kept in my back pocket since the very beginning. A voicemail from back when Dean first borrowed the truck. Right after his mom's first chemo session, he'd called and left a message. His voice was shaky, emotional. He said, "Hey man, thank you again for letting me borrow the truck. I know you said just a few days, but I really appreciate you letting me use it temporarily. I'll get it back to you as soon as I can.
Just need some time."
He said the words borrow, temporarily, and get it back to you, all in one message. I saved it out of habit. I never delete voicemails until I need the space, and I hadn't needed space in a while. It was still there, buried under months of missed calls, political spam, and reminders from my pharmacy. I downloaded it, made 3 copies. One for me, one for the detective, one for the prosecutor. That recording? That was gold. It didn't just kill his "he gave it to me" defense. It buried it. His public defender tried to block it, claimed it was taken out of context. The judge overruled. Said it was clear. Said it spoke to intent and agreement. After that, everything shifted. Dean's whole tone changed. He stopped sending letters. Stopped trying to fight the charges. Started trying to negotiate. His lawyer reached out. Said Dean was willing to plead to lesser charges if I'd agree to not pursue restitution. Restitution. That was money I'd never even asked for yet. I talked to Darren. I talked to the prosecutor. They both said the same thing. It's your call. And then I thought about everything. Not just the truck, but the lies. The fake title. The late-night threats.
The bleach.
The letters. The way he used his mom's death as a shield while he planned to screw me over from day one. So I gave my answer. No deal. Let it all play out. Then I filed a civil suit for damages. And not just for the truck. For every single missed workday, I had to deal with paperwork. For the vandalism. For emotional distress. For the depreciation on the truck while it sat in the impound yard. Dean's face in court when they read off the new claims?
Deadpan.
No more smug. No more fake grief. Just quiet. Like a man who finally realized he lost everything over a lie he told too well and too early. But even then, the story still wasn't over. Because the people renting his house? They weren't just randoms. They were his cousins. And one of them
Started asking about me.
a little too much. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid.
People talk.
Maybe they were just curious about the guy who got Dean locked up. But it didn't sit right with me. One of his cousins, a tall guy with a thin scar down his cheek, started showing up everywhere. Not just around the house. I saw him at the cutie I stop at every morning. Then again at Lowe's. Once, he was parked across from my job site in Peoria, just sitting in a car. Engine running.
Sunglasses on.
Never came inside. I told myself it was coincidence. Until one night, my dog wouldn't stop barking at the side gate. I went out there with a flashlight. The latch was broken, snapped right off. I checked my camera feed. The camera had been unplugged. I called the cops, filed a report, and installed new locks and motion sensors that weekend. But the message was clear. This wasn't over. The court date was still 3 weeks out. Dean was locked up. But now I had a different problem. I wasn't afraid for myself, exactly. But I was married. I had a wife who didn't sign up for any of this. I had nieces who came by on Sundays. I started thinking about them. About what someone like Dean, or someone protecting Dean, might try if they felt like teaching me a lesson. So, I made another move. I called my cousin Darren again. Told him everything. He gave me the number for a private investigator he knew, guy named Dave. Retired cop. Quiet. Not cheap, but solid. Dave came by the house the next day. We walked the yard together. He checked my locks. Checked the windows. Helped me set up a second camera system, one I didn't even tell my wife about, just in case. Then he started watching the cousins. A week later, Dave called me and said, "You're not crazy." Turns out Scarface wasn't just loitering. He had priors. A weapons charge, 2 assaults, and 1 charge of witness intimidation that got dropped after the victim moved out of state. Dean's cousin had a record. And now he was hanging around my house. That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't just about the truck anymore. This was about control.
Power.
Dean might have been behind bars, but he still had people out here trying to keep his name clean. And I'd embarrassed him. Exposed him.
They weren't just watching me.
They were waiting for something. That Friday night, I came home late. My wife had taken the kids to her sister's place for the weekend, just to get some space. She didn't say it, but I knew she was scared. Tired of the weird cars idling on our block. Tired of checking windows twice before bed. Tired of me looking over my shoulder like I was in some kind of war. The street was dark when I pulled in. I sat in the truck for a second, engine still running.
Then I saw it.
Something glinted near the edge of the yard. I killed the lights. Stepped out. It was a gas can. Half full. Sitting under the neighbor's tree, just behind the fence line. I walked over, looked closer.
No nośle.
Just the cap twisted on, but not tight. I picked it up fresh. Right then, I knew what it meant. I called Dave. He picked up on the first ring.
Get inside, he said.
Lock up. I'm coming over. He was at my place in under 15 minutes. We checked the camera footage. Again, the feed had cut out at 11:42 p.m. Whole front yard went dark for 12 minutes. When it came back, the gas can was there. Dave didn't say much. Just watch the screen, jaw tight. They're pushing, he said finally. Testing how far you'll go. What happens when they stop testing?
I asked. He looked at me.
They light something. That night, I didn't sleep. Next morning, I filed for a restraining order against Dean and his known associates, listing Scarface and another guy who had started showing up out of nowhere. I included photos, timestamps, everything. The judge approved a temporary one that same day. Said a permanent hearing would follow. I posted copies of the order on my fence. One on Dean's door. Sent one to the detective. That afternoon, Scarface was gone. But it wasn't over. A week before Dean's trial, his cousin showed up again, this time in broad daylight, standing at the edge of my driveway. Didn't say a word.
Just stood there.
I called the cops. They came fast. He was still there when they arrived. But this time, he had something. A phone. He showed it to the officer, said I had been harassing Dean. Said I was the one threatening them. Said he had texts and voicemails to prove it. All fake. Every one of them. I hadn't texted Dean once since filing charges. The detective knew that. But the cousin? He tried to plant a new narrative. Dean's not the only one who knows how to twist paperwork, he said to me as the cops walked him back to his car. That's when I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival. And I wasn't going to wait around for their next move. 3 days before the trial, I filed a new motion through my civil attorney, emergency injunction, based on escalating harassment and attempted witness tampering. It wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about forcing the court to see what was happening. The threats, the manipulation, the fake messages Dean's cousin tried to use, the gas can, the unplugged cameras. All of it. The judge granted it. Fast. A sheriff's deputy personally delivered the expanded restraining order to Dean's family house. Within hours, the cousin vanished. His name was now officially on the list of barred contact. But that move did something else. It drew attention. Suddenly, Dean's lawyer was asking for continuances. Suddenly, there were new witnesses and complications. It was obvious they were trying to drag things out, stall, maybe even wait me out. What they didn't know, I had already spoken to the media. Not a reporter, but a true crime podcaster. Local. She had covered another vehicle fraud case a few years back and had been following my situation ever since Dave leaked the police report to a retired journalist on her team. We met in a coffee shop. I told her everything. She recorded it all. Changed my name. Blurred my face in the teaser footage. The episode dropped the morning of jury selection. Within hours, it was everywhere. The Glendale truck theft. How one man's kindness was rewritten as a giveaway. I didn't say much on camera. Just one line that hit people hard. I loaned it to a neighbor. I didn't know I was giving it to a con. That changed everything. When court started, the room was different. The judge looked sharper. The prosecutor had bite. Dean looked smaller. First day, they played the voicemail, his voice, his words, saying he'd borrowed it. Then they rolled out the forgery evidence. The altered form. The mismatched signature. The photo of the title in my hand, untouched. Then they played the letters. The ones he wrote from jail. "You owe me," one of them said. "You know you owe me." That one got passed to the jury in silence. Dean's lawyer didn't speak much after that. But it wasn't over. On the third day, a new witness showed up, one of Dean's exes. She asked to testify, and what she said blew the case wide open. She walked in wearing jeans and a black sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back like she was going to the grocery store, not a courtroom. Her name was Kelsey. Said she dated Dean off and on for about a year and a half. Hadn't talked to him in months. She asked to speak under oath. The judge allowed it. The prosecutor looked confused but curious. Kelsey sat down, cleared her throat, and then dropped the bomb. Dean told me months before his mom got sick that he was going to find a way to get that truck. Said his neighbor was soft. Said if he played it right, he'd be driving it by Christmas. You could hear the oxygen leave the room. She looked at me when she said it. Her face wasn't angry, it was tired. Like she'd carried it for too long and finally let it go. She went on. Said Dean had talked about forging titles before. That he knew how to get papers online. That he practiced signatures using a stack of mail he stole from his old boss. She even had screenshots of texts he sent her. One said, "Got the truck. All mine now." Dumbass didn't even ask for it back. The judge recessed immediately. Dean's lawyer was pale. The jury didn't look at him again after that. By the time the trial ended, the only question was how long he'd serve. The prosecutor didn't hold back. Asked for the max. Added attempted witness intimidation, fraud, falsifying documents, and retaliatory harassment. The verdict came in the next day. Guilty on all counts. I didn't smile. I didn't even nod. I just stared at him while the bailiff cuffed him again, tighter this time.
Dean didn't look at me.
Not once. But it didn't end there. Because outside the courthouse, Kelsey came up to me. There was something else she needed to say. Something I hadn't expected. She waited until the cameras were gone. Until the reporters had packed up and the lawyers were off whispering near the courthouse steps. Then she walked up to me.
Hey, she said, quiet.
I nodded, not sure what to expect. There's something else, she said, lowering her voice. Dean, he didn't just plan to steal your truck. He thought you had cash. Thought you were sitting on savings. He used to say you were too careful not to have a pile somewhere. She looked down, then back up at me. He was trying to figure out how to get in your house. Not just to mess with you, he wanted to clean you out. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Just stood there with that tight, frozen feeling behind my ribs. Kelsey continued, almost apologetic. That's why I came today. He talked like you were a mark. Not a neighbor. Not a friend. Just a problem he was working around. That part hit hard. Because even after everything, the fake title, the threats, the jail letters, I'd still been telling myself some part of it was about grief. About him losing control. But it wasn't. Not to him. To him, I was a target. Something to strip down and walk away from. I shook her hand and said thank you. She looked relieved. I think she'd been waiting to say that for months. I drove home slow that night. The house was quiet when I walked in. My wife and kids were back. Dinner was in the oven. Normal things. Soft light, low voices. But I sat down on the couch, stared at the dark TV screen for a long time. Then I opened the drawer in the end table. The one where I keep the original title. Folded. Slightly torn at the edges. Still with my name on it. I still keep that title in the drawer, not because I want the truck back, but because it reminds me what it costs to trust the wrong person. And even now, sometimes I catch myself looking at my neighbors a little longer than I should, wondering if I'd see it coming next time. Or if I'd miss it all over again.